Tony Campolo needs no introduction to our audience for sure. In fact, anywhere around the world, Tony Campolo is well known. As I've traveled in various countries, his name keeps coming up. He's a bit of a disturber. He comes in and doesn't say the expected thing. He upsets people sometimes. He has a kind of a prophetic zeal, a kind of a wildness in the eye at times. If you've heard Tony, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But he's going to be featured all of this month talking about red letter Christians. And we'll explain more about that in a few moments. But I thought to begin the month, we would just sit down and kind of catch up with him. First of all, welcome, Tony. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing? I heard about your stroke a few years ago. How's your health?
It's really good right now. I'm exercising and trying to watch my diet and taking the medicine, so I'm being a really good guy, which I really didn't do before, and it took its toll. And I remember the doctor looking at me and he's saying, "You're one of those Christian types that you think sudden death, sudden glory. Right. You think you're going to keel over halfway through a lecture at Harvard, and the headline will read, 'Campolo dies, lecturing at Harvard.'" Right. He said, "That's not going to happen. You're going to be in a wheelchair, drooling out of the side of your mouth, and your wife's going to control your every movement for the next 10 years. Does that scare you?" I thought, "Oh, yeah, that got my attention."
Take me home now, Lord.
So I've been careful since then.
Yeah, well, you look terrific. You're in your mid-70s now?
Yeah, I'm 76 going on 77. Yeah,
Whoa.
I'm getting up there, man.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I go to weddings and the bride's grandmother looks better to me than the bride. You know you're getting old.
Well, when I grow up, I want to be just like you.
There you go.
Tony, I want to just find out a little bit about you as Tony.
Yeah.
You come from an immigrant family.
That's right.
You're were your parents born overseas?
My father was. My mother was born shortly after her mother brought her to the United States. My grandmother was pregnant out of wedlock in Italy, in southern Italy. Yeah. He got stoned to death, literally, in the early 1900s. Right. So when she found herself pregnant, she figured out how to get out of the country, which was a smart move, and came over to this country.
And she was pregnant with your mom?
Yeah.
And your dad, when he arrived, did he have any kind of a skill set, or did he just start right from the bottom?
You know, part of my social consciousness comes out of my parents. Yeah. My father arrived here, a Roman Catholic kid, 15 years old with his brother. There had been an earthquake in Messina, wiped out 3/4 of the town, including his whole family, except he and his brothers and 2 sisters. So he and his brother came over to America to make a new start. He was here about 3 weeks, and his brother got influenza and died. 15-year-old kid left here in the country. He was desperate. He didn't know the language, and a Baptist missionary, a young guy in South Philadelphia, saw my father on the street corner, despairing, went up and asked him, couldn't get a job, and he's desperate, he's starving. This preacher worked overtime and got him a job cleaning windows at the Benjamin Franklin Hotel. Well, that kind of concern for his economic well-being was transitional for my father. "Hey, if you care for me, what do? You have this mission, I'm coming to your church." My mother's story is almost the same. Desperate situations, and the same young missionary, I think it was about 26 years old, helped my grandmother and my mother in a desperate time. Got my mother a job at the age of 9 in South Philadelphia, cleaning jewelry for jewelers all over the area. And the family survived. And they ended up going to the mission. And that's where my mother and father met. And this guy married them. And it's a wonderful story.
So your mom has a job cleaning jewelry at age 9. Does that mean she wasn't going to school?
That's right. And when she got to be about 14, she started going to night school. And she learned how to read and write and do all the things. Never graduated, of course. But she was very, very bright. My mother was very, very bright. And she became quite proficient in writing and reading. But it was, I mean, you talk about the drive of these people to survive and to learn. And my mother was like that. Sometimes people ask me, "Tell me about your call to the ministry." And my response is, I never was called. My mother decided. From when I was a little kid, I could hear my mother saying, "You were brought into this world to win people to Jesus and to help the poor and the oppressed and the downtrodden of the world. Do you understand that?" Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, that was drilled into my head. It was part of my consciousness. I never thought of doing anything else with my life. My mother wanted to name me Samuel, but my father insisted that I have his name. But the idea of Samuel, the little boy, waking up in the middle of the night and hearing the voice of God calling him into ministry, that's what my mother wished for me and prayed for me and nurtured me and challenged me. So that's the story of how I got into ministry.
Well, did your dad and then your mom have any qualms about starting to work with a Protestant mission when they had a Roman Catholic upbringing?
Well, of course, they had been won over to the evangelical tradition because of this young missionary.
Because of the social justice focus of this young guy.
Yeah, that's right. And they were able to really have an incredible influence on the extended family. None of the others became Catholic, but became Protestant, I should say. They remained Catholic, but they remained evangelical Catholics, very much in love with Jesus, very much into Scripture, very much, I mean, we're Italian, so, hey, our hero was St. Francis of Assisi. If you ever want to talk about anybody who would be a red-letter Christian, it would be St. Francis. The red letter referring to the red letters in the Bible, you know, they highlight the words of Jesus in red. Francis is the epitome of that. And to a large degree, all of the young men and women that are working with me in ministry look to St. Francis. We're all evangelical Protestants, but we look to St. Francis as our kind of patron saint and hero.
Huh. Now, you mentioned red letter Christians, and you've written a book about it, and we're going to be featuring it with a special DVD offer, which we'll be talking about in a moment. You don't want to be called an evangelical anymore?
I spend about half of my time on university campuses, everything from Harvard and Stanford to Christian college camp. We have a lot of Christian universities down south of the border. You know, if you go to Harvard's campus, and I'd go there with great aplomb as a sociologist, and they announce you as an evangelical, the red flags go up. You're an evangelical. You therefore are anti-women, anti-gay. You really despise gay people.
You're pro-gun.
You're pro-gun. You're anti-environment. You put Del ribbon. You're pro-war. We're saying, wait a minute.
And you're a fundy too.
And
right. And you vote Republican.
That's right. That's right. And we're all saying that's not who we are. And you know, the word evangelical was really coined by Billy Graham and Carl Henry of Christianity Today magazine in the early 1950s, because they felt that the word fundamentalist had worn out. It was a very respectable movement in the beginning, but by 1950, the word fundamentalist connotated that you were anti-intellectual, that you were judgmental and self-righteous and holier than thou. And Billy Graham said this is a bad image. So he got rid of the word fundamentalist and then introduced the word evangelical, and that's what people who are into the fundamentals of the Christian faith have called themselves.